and air conditioning, and I don't know, did you talk to them? I guess this is more on, can you explain it to us? I'm not.
Okay, we have, the air conditioner in the courtroom is out. The heat's been out for a long time. The air conditioner's out. The unit is old. I don't know how old it is, but they said the unit itself is rusted out. The compressor is out. So it's not reasonable to just replace the compressor, condenser. So they said we have to replace the whole unit. On the first sheet, where it has there, the last sentence says, "This match is not guaranteed to work, so we cannot promise this match of equipment." So I called and talked to them. It's Smart, Al, and he said, well, he's done this before and he's made it work. But they can't guarantee it. Sometimes they have problems with it. So that, for that part, that's not replacing the car, it's fan the car unit inside. That's $8,392.
Did you ask them how you could save money, and they came up with that little scenario of repair?
You know, we'd like to put window units all around the courtroom temporarily or something.
No, I mean, but that's about $4,000 difference in this bid. So,
Well, you understand, okay, what I said, Carl, was that this bid was replacing the outside, the compressor, condenser unit, and all that. Okay, so the second bid is replacing the whole fan and coil unit. Okay, we included in the first one is replacing the expansion valve because it's a different type of refrigerant, R22, R23, R27, I don't know what, the one's different from the other. So the expansion valve won't work with that. They cannot get a unit that is not pre-charged in that size, so they can put the refrigerant of their choice in it. It comes pre-charged with the refrigerant in it. So that they can't match the new one for the old one.
so in this one, they're not replacing the evaporator.
They're not
This is just a compressor, and they're going to flush the system, get rid of that old Freon and sludge, and they're going to put this new type of Freon in there with a new compressor.
Right, and the expansion valve too.
This bid, in my estimation, I mean, there's no warranty, and I can tell you from working on cars, trucks, and tractors that when you start mixing that Freon, there's a thing called black death, because those two refrigerants are not compatible. Either are the oils, and if you don't get every bit out of there, and you never will get it all out of there, and it like forms this black sludge, and it'll kill the compressor. And I just wouldn't even consider that. I know you're saving a little money there, but my God, if they're not going to warranty anything, and you had to eat another compressor.
All right, so you understand?
Yeah, I think I do. That's what I'm asking you. Am I right about that?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, so the second one is a new 7.5 ton heat pump unit. 7.5 ton air handling unit. And it has with the heat pump, you have a supplementary electric heater. That's a heat strip. Electric heat comes on when heat comes running cool enough. And it does a non-programmable thermostat. In other words, it's not one of the programs come on and off. You just set it by hand, turn it on and off by hand.
The manual.
Manual. So anyway, that bid includes removing the old system and putting the new system in completely. And that bid is $11,929.41. So 7.5 ton unit, that's quite a bit over $1,000 a ton. It used to be, it's about $1,500 a ton, which is close to the range, but broken down 3 stories, and I'm sure the labor on it's higher than normal. I did not get another bid, just asked them for something, and I don't know what charge we have. We have, court scheduled today, tomorrow, and on the 12th, and on the 21st of this month, I believe. I don't remember exactly, but I asked what days it was scheduled. Is that right, Robbie?
Right.
And, so, we're considering that we might be vacating the building. We want to spend that money for it. What do we do?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, we've got a jury next month also on the 11th. Is that other room gonna be ready over there for us to conduct court?
Probably not. I just got a message this morning that some furniture will not be delivered until the 3rd of October. And then we have to get moved, and my point is this on the other building. We can't fix a courtroom up until after everyone signs off on the building. We're not going through some changes with the architect and everything else, get their permission before we're moved into the building. We've got to move into the building as is. Then we can fix the courtroom, so we will not have the courtroom ready by the 11th, I'm sure.
Okay, because I know from today through the end of November, because I know it's probably gonna take that long to get something constructed, I've got 12 court dates plus a jury. That's something to take into consideration too. If we're gonna have to work out of the courtroom we're in now, I've got 82 people in there this morning and many attorneys in jackets.
And we can't open the windows.
There are no windows, I mean, they're all sealed.
I mean, if it was really cool outside.
Yep.
Pete, let me ask you something then. These units, if, you know, the court decided to restore the courthouse, could this unit be taken to the health department building and or the special projects building?
Yes, it could be changed. It could be put.
So we wouldn't be throwing our money away if at some point we had to pull it out of there.
No, the unit is, you know, it's a bunch of labor, but the unit could be used in another place.
And how many ton unit would we need over there at the health department building?
I don't have that, but it. I don't
Something
think
about that size, or would that be a little, something?
I think it would be a smaller unit than this for that building. But it could be used there.
Is there an option of relocating court temporarily? Do you know if that's possible, Ron?
Well, I know Judge Saxon made the remark this morning that if we have to, we'll use this here. What are we supposed to do?
It's the county courtroom, not your courtroom.
So, I mean, she's tied up in court because I told her, I said I was coming over, she was welcome to.
Let me ask you another question. How long would it take to do this work? Two or 3 days?
The indoor air handler has a production date of September 16th, 2011, and allows 7 to 10 days after that for arrival.
Huh.
So it should be here by October 1st.
So we're still talking
You
about
mean
having to
nobody in the
relocate.
state of Texas has one that we could go pick up, or they could go?
I don't
pick
think he
up?
called everybody in the state of Texas.
Well,
No, but I mean,
this
if
is.
they're a trained dealer.
Carl, this is normal. This is his normal way of buying equipment. We'll put that on here.
Oh, okay.
He
Okay, I'll
didn't-
come.
He didn't check to see if somebody had one somewhere. He may be able to get one. We'll put that note on here. That's how they buy equipment. And you just put that on here for time. So whether he can get one, he didn't go into that.
When did this thing break down? A week ago, 10 days ago,
It's last Monday,
last Monday?
whatever date that was, the 29th.
Someone, I don't know what it is.
That was the 29th?
That's
Say we had TDCJ Court, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
We had TDCJ Court, and then air conditioning that day.
So it's been like, what, 8 days or something like that? A week and a day? Because it looks like we're already, we lost a lot of time.
So as the weather gets cooler, doesn't it get cooler up in here? Because I know they
You
don't
know, I
have any heat. Does it get cooler up in there?
You
Robbie?
walk over there right now, it's not cool these last 2 mornings.
No, but I'm saying as it gets cooler, does it usually get cooler in there?
Well, I mean, we have no heat in the winter.
Kind of
Oh,
cold
I
in
mean,
the
it's
winter,
okay.
but we had no
Yeah.
heat. It's kind of cold up there.
We haven't had heat in there for years.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the possibility of moving this unit to the health clinic, we're in the process right now of getting that one replaced through the SACO grant.
That's what I thought. I was going to ask you that.
Okay, but you still have special projects. And they
That's just saying
probably
that-
used to have a central unit, I don't know, do you know, Pete? The special projects, did it used to have central and it broke and now they just got a window unit?
Yes.
Take the unit out of the 3rd floor.
Yes, Carl, there's ducts.
We'll use the prep.
Does Smarts have a bid in on the,
A proposal on the health clinic? Yes.
But are you,
call Smarts?
is there a way we can change the SACO grant and you move that? You can't do that, can you?
I doubt it because they've already filed for the amendment to be able to
Okay.
use it over there.
Take it out of the 3rd floor. You guys use it.
Could we do that? Pete, could we move the unit out of the 3rd floor down to the 2nd?
I don't know which unit.
The unit from the 3rd floor, can we move it to the 2nd? No? How come?
That's called cannibalism. It's not
Don't use it anyway. Yeah.
this day and age.
I mean, do we need more information? I don't know what to do.
I don't know what the issue.
I mean, do we want to spend, I mean, are we going to be using that, if we're going to be using that courtroom, waiting to get the other courtroom ready? I mean, how long is it going to take to get that other courtroom ready? We haven't even ordered furniture for it, have we? Or have we? I don't know.
No, we don't.
I know we budgeted.
We don't know. We haven't ordered anything. We don't know what's going.
I mean, it could be November before you're,
But November's cold. I mean, the air conditioner's in November. Well, it's supposed to be cold. Welcome
but
to Texas,
what
it might
if
not
it's
be cold.
really, really, really cold? Because I know when there was no heat in there, I mean, the judge was wearing a jacket.
But it's been like that for years and years and years. Is there something we can do to keep that courtroom cool without spending this much money?
Check to see if you can, it's at the 3rd floor. The unit can stay outside. You move the inside, from the inside. You up 3rd floor. Take the air conditioner out of there. You can stay downstairs, the outside unit's good, one moves out. Just move the inside units, it's a pipe.
I can't say that they can take that unit.
I don't know that they would even do that. I mean,
They'll
If
do
I was an
anything
air
they ask you to
conditioner.
do, as long as we pay them.
yeah, well, you know, it's like giving advice, you know, it's,
The
That's-
whole
that's
thing
not-
is, do we want to spend $12,000 for 2 months? How long is it going to, or 3 months? How long is it going to take us to get in the other building? I mean, what are the temperatures, projected temperatures? I mean, we don't want to spend $12,000 on something we're going to use for 1 month.
Well, even
Or
if
might
you're
not.
talking replacing it and spending that kind of money, you're still gonna have to do something with district court in the meantime. If it's as hot as Robbie says it is, I mean, for the next 3 weeks that they've got things scheduled, they're still gonna have to be moved somewhere else.
While we're waiting for the equipment to in? I don't know what to tell them now.
I mean, I just can't believe that it's gonna take 3 weeks to get it in. And we've already lost 1 week.
Well, you know how the economy is, and people don't have the warehouse to stack full. They have, he has this as a scheduling for,
I wanna bet you money right now that if you gave me a check and you said, get me in a half, 7.5 ton
There's no
unit,
gambling for it.
right here, huh?
There's no gambling for it.
That, and all this equipment that they need, I'd be back this afternoon with it all on my trailer.
I'm sure they can find one, they can find one somewhere.
Yeah.
Or they can
You know
find
what, but we don't
one.
wanna front the money up front Not saying that they'd do it, but we are having issues with our phone system that we paid for up front.
He's working on that.
What do phones have to do with air conditioning in the district?
I'm just saying paying up front.
Okay.
Pete,
Well,
what do you think? I mean, okay, we can go back and forth all
we
day.
have 12 court dates between now and November and one trial. 13 days that a bunch of people are gonna be there in jackets and, you know,
And those are days that I actually know of, that's not counting my CPS, TDC, or anything that TDC may have as far as a jury trial. You know, that did not include them.
The whole, does it come down to we want to spend $12,000?
I don't think we have a choice, personally. I mean, my thoughts would be to fix it, and I would have got them started on it probably the first day. Because I have personally never been in a courtroom, this one or any other one, where the air conditioner did not work. And no matter what county you go to, 254 counties, courtroom, whether it's county court or district court, and the AC doesn't work, I don't care what they say, I'm just really not gonna be happy about it. Because you got a coat on, and you're there for court, and you're sweating.
Pete, are there any portable units that are
Not for that capacity.
appropriate?
Not that capacity.
There's some small appropriate, but nothing to handle that capacity. She said 80 people there today.
Even if you had 3 portable units in there, or, I mean, you know what I'm saying, like one in each corner, would that not? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Well, I think the ones she's talking about, they have an exhaust, and you have to pipe that hot air outside.
I'm talking about like a window unit, but
Oh,
it's not.
oh, okay.
It's an actual room air conditioner
Yeah.
unit. It's like a window air conditioner, but it's not the window.
Right, but it puts out cold air, but it also puts out hot air, and you have to have a hose, like a vacuum cleaner hose, and you have to pipe that outside.
Oh,
Yeah, or it'll heat up the room. They have one down there at Pico. I actually got the experience. I told them, this is doing you no good, because it's putting out hot air, and it's putting out cold air. You need to put a hose on it and pipe it out, pipe that hot air outside. That's pretty simple.
The cost of portable units for that size room would probably be in the range of $6,000 anyway. So,
Carol, you've got a jury coming in on the 28th, and you're gonna be summoning, what, 150 people?
You get that many people, and what's the body temperature? 98 degrees. 98 degrees times how many people? It brings, I know we don't think about that, but it brings the temperature of the room up quite a bit. So if the court starts and it's 80 degrees, you put 80 people in there, it could go way up to maybe 90.
I hate to spend that much money too.
Well, I do too, but I hate to sit there and explain to a jury and attorneys and judges and district clerks that we chose not to because we think that we can put them where? I mean, where are we gonna hold this court? Anybody got any suggestions? I mean, because this courtroom is not gonna function without an air conditioner. So the question to the court is, where are we gonna have court?
That's not the agenda's the air conditioner.
Okay,
I make a motion to go ahead and put the air conditioner in.
okay, can I amend that motion to state that we approve putting this air conditioning system in after talking to Smarts and see if there is any alternative to get temporary at a reasonable price and spend a portion of this?
I thought you already checked into that and you
Well, I
said
haven't,
there's no
I didn't
units.
talk about, I asked him about what it would do, that's all, about with this bid, this is all.
Well, even if we go ahead and we say we're gonna replace the unit, if it's gonna take 3 weeks, I mean, or whatever, I mean, we're gonna have to move on it pretty quick because the court dates, I mean, I guess our only option is to push back all the court dates and cancel. I mean, that's not a really good option there either. I mean, I guess we could do that, we could just cancel all the court dates. Until either the weather cools off or the new building's ready to go. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think we have to do something. That heat should have been fixed years ago and it wasn't. They knew it was out. They knew the unit was old, knew it was bad, nothing could have been done.
And I've watched people sit there and blink this for years.
So,
That's that would've, could've, should've.
that's right. Anyway, the only thing I was saying is to amend this so we don't have to go with this completely. We go ahead and agree
But the way
to
that,
accept this with the option, if it can be reduced or changed, something that we can do would be more reusable than this unit, if we have to take it out, adaptable to the unit, to the building over there, or whatever we need. I was just asking for an option to negotiate with,
Okay.
if possible.
Are you making that motion?
I guess we could do that, but the way the agenda's written, it doesn't say anything about that, but if we were gonna go ahead and
I think you can do that, Carl. It's just discuss, approve, disapprove. If we give him some negotiating power, and if he says, you know, that if there's something else they could do to do a temporary fix, we can give him that flexibility. I don't think that would be that difficult.
okay, well, if Pete's in charge of the buildings, my question is, why is it even on the agenda? He's in charge of buildings.
Because he said he didn't want to spend that much money.
Well,
Without with everybody's agreement, because we're not gonna be there that much longer, or supposedly not gonna be there that much longer.
I wanted the opinion of the board. I was hoping the other commissioners would be here, so they could have their opinion on whether we should spend $12,000 on that if we were gonna vacate this building.
So whenever you're gonna do something to a building and there's gonna be quite a bit of money involved, you're gonna put it on the agenda and from now on?
Certainly. I'm not gonna go and spend any amount like $10,000 without some other approval of it. I'm not gonna just spend money for it. I don't think I have that choice.
Well, especially in instances where it's not budgeted, because the budget will have to be amended to do this.
So therefore, it has to be on the agenda. Can you tell Mr. Busman to come in here, please?
Your summons?
Mr. Busman, the way that this is written on the agenda, it says discuss, approve, disapprove bid submitted by Smart Refrigeration and Air Conditioning for repair, replacement of air conditioning system for the district courtroom, second floor courthouse, and the office offered by Pete. What we were asking, what Pete was asking in his motion, Carl made a motion, and Pete asked to amend the motion, okay? And, Pete, were you making your own motion or asking for an amendment?
No, I'd agree with the motion to spend the money to replace air conditioning if we need to. I was asking that it be amended for me to negotiate and see if there are other choices that would, where this equipment could be used in another place if we take everything out of the courthouse. Just asking for permission.
He was asking for some flexibility.
Sure, they had flexibility.
Has the first motion been seconded?
Well, they were discussing it back and forth.
Well-
He wanted to,
Yeah, and too, you know, I can amend my motion too to say that
Okay, will you withdraw?
I would want to do this as quickly as possible.
Okay,
And I
wait a
don't want to
second.
wait 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks just to get the equipment, because it's really not going to do us any good.
so what is your motion? Let's just do motions, let's not argue, let's go. What is your motion?
Okay, I make a motion to approve this and to spend the $11,929.41 to replace the compressor and the air handler, and that we do it in a very timely manner, like get started on it right away, because, I mean, quite frankly, if we wait till if the equipment doesn't even get here till the end of November, she's already had 12 or 13 court dates, I mean, it's kind of pointless, you know? The only, if we're gonna do it, we need to do it very quickly, that's what I'm saying. Like, get the unit, and I don't see where it would take more than 2 or 3 days.
All right, in other words, you're making a motion that this be done within a week.
You're talking about the second bid, the $12,000 one?
Right, because the first one, I mean, that's not even an option, because you have no warranty.
Agree on that.
You have no warranty at all. That's, how smart would we look if we came back and said, okay, the compressor failed and now, you know, it just.
I agree with that.
Is there a second?
All right, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda, the only thing is we cannot say that it has to be done within a week. If they can't have it here and then it's not done within a week, our motion's no good. So I don't know about that, Mr. Busselman. But if they
That's
can't get
correct,
it
because they
here,
can't get it here, you're gonna, they're gonna be stuck only with
With a
what's,
week.
with the whatever's in this motion, that's it. If they want to go
I
ahead
mean,
and
but
do
if that's
it,
how it's been
Let
calculated.
me ask you something, if that unit was for your house and they told you, Mr. Busselman, it's gonna take 2 or 3 weeks to
Okay,
get, you know.
but what if
My
it's
house
not
is
here?
done.
That's the problem. What if it's
My
not
house is
here?
done.
I mean, what if they don't have it done within a week?
Yeah, I would almost bet money they don't have it down there at their shop, but I bet money that it's in San Antonio, Victoria, or Corpus, and they could drive and get it.
Carol, is that motion captured like within a week? Because if it was and it fails, then we're gonna be back.
What I heard was to replace it in a very timely manner, and then he would prefer that it be in a week.
but they also accepted the second bid, which the terms and so forth are in that motion.
Yeah, but Pete just said that that's just something standard that they punch a button on their computer and then it's on there. Just so that's CYA.
I just don't want to get it so tight that if something doesn't happen and it's not done
Yeah,
as fast as
no,
we
I
want it
understand
done,
that.
then it goes bye-bye.
That's a pretty
So I
generic
just-
little thing to put on a work order, so it gives you
But
some
anyway,
leeway.
so we voted in timely manner, Carol. I'm just making sure for clarification purposes. I don't want
But
to
you
come back and
modified
say
you modified the bid.
Okay, but
right?
what do you have, Carol? Because whatever you have is what happens. Tell us what happened.
What I am going to put is that Carl made the motion to spend $11,929.41 to replace the compressor and whatever else in a very timely manner. So you went with the second bid for the $11,929, and you want it quickly so that
Yeah, I don't
there's
see
not a
that it
delay.
should take more
Okay.
than 2, 3, 4 days.
That's what you're stuck with whatever it says here.
So Carl voted, and then Pete's in favor.
And Pete seconded.
And did I leave out any opposed? If I did, I don't, these two might be, but they're not.
No, you didn't.
They
Okay.
can still vote.
All righty, are we done with that one? The next item on the agenda is to discuss, approve, disapprove an order by Commissioners Court of Karnes County, Texas, calling a bond election to be held within said county, making provision for the conduct of the election and resolving other matters incident and related to the following holding of such election. Before we get started, I wanted to let everybody know that's Bob Henderson. You probably remember him. He's our financial advisor. He has been working with us along this whole bond election process with Tom Pollen, the bond election attorney. So if there's any questions or anything going on, Mr. Henderson can help fill those in, along with Pete and myself, who we've both talked to Mr. Pollen, working with this to get it up and going.
Okay, I think I gave each commissioner and the judge this document right here, which is from Sharon Fleming at the Texas Historical Commission. And if I may, just let me read this. This language prevents the county from using the bond funds unless they receive sufficient funding to complete the restoration. Second paragraph. The subtext for proposition language states, the Commissioners Court of Karnes County covets and agrees with the voters that they will issue the bonds only if Proposition 1 passes and the county receives a grant or grants from THC sufficient to enable the county to complete courthouse restoration. And she writes, after complete, it should say a phase or phases of construction leading towards the full restoration of the courthouse, or they could just eliminate B. Now that's what she's saying. And it'd be my thoughts that if these people are giving you money, that Mr. Henderson, the court, and THC should work together, because they're giving you, what, $617,000 in phase one? So if they're giving you that kind of money, why don't you work with them and put the language in there that's agreeable to them and their grant funds?
It'll have to be approved by the election attorney.
Well, what, yeah, we have, that statutory language is what Mr. Pollen told us. They've never, Mr. Henderson, can you help us out? You were on all those conference calls.
But I don't know how closely Mr. Henderson may or may not have worked with THC, but that when they read it, this is their thoughts on it. This is what they would like it to say.
I don't even know if that's all Mr. Henderson, so I just
Not
talked about
because it's not working for somebody else.
Oh, okay, well, I've never been, never had a problem with people hearing me anyway. My wife says I like the sound of my own voice when I turn it up so high. First of all, let me say that my name for the record is Robert Henderson. I'm a managing director of RBC Capital Markets, and we have been the financial advisors to Karnes County for, seems like forever, 3 weeks. I remember first coming down here and working with Judge Dick Pierce, gosh, 25 probably years or so ago. The second thing I want to say is that I am not an attorney. I do not practice law. I do not give legal opinions, okay? Having said that, the judge is correct. I have participated in a number of telephone calls with Mr. Pollen, who, for the record, his name is Tom Pollen of Bickerstaff, Heath, Delgado, and Acosta, which is the name of the bond counsel firm retained by the county. As a personal point, Mr. Pollen was the head of the public finance group for the Texas Attorney General's office before going into private practice with the Bickerstaff firm. In addition to visiting with Mr. Pollen and the judge on multiple occasions, I've also have visited at length with Mr. Graves. Stan, I don't have his first name here, but Stan on several occasions dating back to May and then most recently in August of this year. I know that Mr. Graves has reviewed previous drafts of the election order. I don't know Ms. Fleming, but it is clear from her notes that she has reviewed the most recent draft, which was produced by Mr. Pollen just last Friday.
Mr. Henderson, do you have?
Yes, I do. I've got one right here.
Okay.
Thank you. And the paragraph that she's referring to is the first full paragraph on page 3 of the election order. I'm guessing that everyone here, at least the commissioners and judge, has a copy of the election order. Now, with that introduction, let me address Judge Shaw's direct question. Yes, Mr. Pollen is very cautious and very careful as to what legal language he uses in the election calling the bond, the order calling the bond election, because it is set out statutorily what language he can use and can't use. Now, that's not to say that the court doesn't have some latitude. They do have latitude. One of the things that I would say, both with respect to the comments by Ms. Fleming here and the conversation that I had with the judge yesterday, is that I don't know that there is any perfect language that's going to take into consideration all the potential outcomes here. One of the things that we do know, and that Mr. Graves has been very adamant about pointing out, is that while the Texas Historical Commission has awarded and set aside the $617,866 grant for phase 1, there is no commitment for phase 2. We know that the maximum amount of grant that any county in the state of Texas can get is $6 million, which means that the maximum amount of additional grants that current Karnes County might be able to get will be $5,280,000. Mr. Graves, to his credit, was very straightforward in stating that the maximum amount of money that has been allocated or appropriated in the most recent legislative session for courthouse restoration is $20 million, and that he is quite sure that neither Karnes County nor any other county in the state is going to get full funding for the balance of the $6 million cap that is set aside for each county, not set aside, but is available to counties that apply. What he said the most likely outcome would be is that the balance of the money would be awarded in multiple phases. And he gave examples, I can't cite the name of the county, where there was 3 phases to the project. One was to do effectively what phase 1 here is at Karnes County, which is to stabilize the foundation and kind of stabilize the building, for lack of a better word. That's the language he gave. And then he talked about phase 2 in this other county being to restore the exterior of the building. And they had to come back in phase 3 and restore the interior of the building. He said that he did not feel like it was likely that this county or any other county would get sufficient funding in the next phase to complete both the interior and the exterior of the building, simply because of the limitations of state funding. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of discussion about what would this project cost. We know that 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago in 2007, the estimate was $7.3 million. We also know that over the longer historical period of time, contractors would build anywhere from 7 to 12% annually in for inflation. But recent economic circumstances have been that construction inflation has been non-existent for the last couple of years. Prices have been held pretty steady. So I think that it's not unreasonable to expect that if we were to build it today, that cost could be possibly as low as the $7.5 million more or less that it was 4 years ago. Could be easily 9 or 10 million. But we have to also think about the timing that Mr. Graves set out, which is how much longer would it be before we could get the balance of the $6 million if it is ultimately available at all. And Mr. Graves was quick to point out that there can be no assurances that you would get any additional grant money. But he did say, under the best of circumstances, it would take 2 legislative sessions, 2 biennium periods, which is 4 years, to get the entire balance of the $6 million, if in fact it was awarded, just in terms of the appropriation process of the state. So when you think about how much money you need to ask the voters to approve, you have to think about not only what was the estimate 4 years ago, what might be the cost today, but also what might be the cost 4 years down the road, or possibly longer, before you got the additional grant monies that you needed. Consequently, I think that a $4 million number is probably a reasonable number to work with. Now, with respect to the comments that Ms. Fleming made in particular, I think that boils down to a political decision in this commissioner's court. We don't know what funding is going to be available in the future, if any at all, and we don't know when it might be available. So the commissioner's court then has to make a decision as to, are we going to do phase 1 with a portion of this $4 million and bond proceeds voted by the citizens, understanding that you don't have to issue all $4 million. You don't have to issue all of it at one time. You could issue $300,000 to match the phase 1 money. You can wait in 2 years and issue $2 million to match monies that might be available under a second grant, and you can wait 4 years and issue the balance of the $4 million to match whatever third grant might be available.
So we can match the bond funds as we get the grant funds?
Yes, you could do that. But again, that's a political decision. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think there's anything in the language that Mr. Pollin has put together that would preclude you from doing that.
Okay, that's really was one of my concerns.
I think that,
because that's actually how we have to do it. It's in phases, and so the bond funds have to be appropriated as we get the grant money.
Well,
We talked about that yesterday, it could go phase for phase, but it's just like you said, it can be a political decision. If there's a different commissioner's court, they could give $4 million all at once, or give none. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not,
It's pretty simple.
there's a lot of latitude and flexibility.
there's a lot of latitude. But the two-edged sword that I mentioned earlier, and I mentioned this to Judge Shaw yesterday, is that what happens if you get a phase 2 grant? Again, it's meat that's broken into 3 phases, not THC. But let's say that phase 2 is either the interior or the exterior of the building, and phase 3 is the reverse. What happens if you get a phase 2 grant, and then the bids come in so low, quite frankly, that the $4 million would allow you to complete the whole project without getting the third phase grant? Again, it becomes a political decision. So I think this language could possibly cut both ways in that respect. But my preference, my personal preference is to view it as language that gives you the latitude to make the decisions that the Commissioner's Court needs to make as those grant monies either do or do not become available. Does that help any commissioner?
Yes, but, in looking at this, I guess Ms. Fleming just wants this third paragraph here. After complete, it should say a phase or phases of construction leading to the full restoration of the courthouse, or that could just eliminate B. Now, could we amend this language to satisfy because they are our grantor, aren't they? I mean, they're giving us the money. Why wouldn't we write it?
Well, you asked 2 or 3 different questions, and let me try to answer them. And again, I'm going to preface it by, I'm not the bond attorney. We got an attorney sitting over there.
You look like an attorney.
Now, wait, now, why you want? We just met. Why do you want to insult me like that? That's not fair. I think, first of all, the Commissioner's Court certainly does have the latitude to amend this order as it sees fit, subject, of course, to Mr. Pollan confirming that we're not violating any statutory requirements with respect to what the Constitution requires with calling an election. I will offer this personal opinion, though, and just food for thought. Her third paragraph where it says, after completed, it should say a phase or phases leading toward the full restoration of the courthouse. I would be concerned about that language because, as Mr. Graves pointed out, and I've never visited with Ms. Fleming, but as Mr. Graves has pointed out, there is absolutely no assurance, no guarantees whatsoever that there will be any additional grant funding. We know that the current appropriation is limited to $20 million. We've had Mr. Graves say, who's the head of the department that does this stuff, say, at best, you would get a partial grant this year and a subsequent, not this year, but this biennium, and then subsequent in the next biennium. If we say leading to the full restoration of the courthouse, I would be concerned that we would be assuring the voters that there will be an ultimate full restoration of the courthouse, and I don't think the court can do that because we don't have any assurances from THC there will be any additional money. You see what I'm saying?
When you do phase 1, it's in hopes of doing phase 2, and then once you do phase 2, it's in hopes of doing phase 3. I mean, that's the deal. I mean, you don't want to just do 1 of the 3.
No. Well, I wouldn't think that you would, but again, that's a political decision for the commissioners.
I mean, and it's not saying that the funds are guaranteed or not guaranteed because we don't know. But
here's my point, Commissioner, and again, I'm practicing law without a license, and I don't mean to. For the record, I'm not a lawyer, okay? But I have worked with bond attorneys on calling elections for 29 years in my career in the bond business. For cities, counties, school districts, and the like. And we have 2 legal concepts that I think you have to be concerned about. One is creating a contract with the voters, saying something during the election process that a reasonable voter might rely upon in making a decision and to vote yea or nay. And we have to be careful that when we do that, we in fact follow through with what it is that we've quote unquote contracted with the voter. The other thing is that we have to be very careful with respect to the expenditure of public funds, that we are not electioneering. We're not trying to influence a vote yes or no. We're simply putting the vote out there for the citizens to make a decision. And I would be concerned about the language leading towards a full restoration might be electioneering, because we're telling them we're going to fully restore the courthouse when we are not in a position to deliver that, because we don't know if we're going to get additional THC grants. And the covenant with the voters. If this thing passes and this Commissioner's Court then makes the the political decision to issue some of these bonds to complete phase one. And 2 years down the road, we don't get any additional funding from THC, or 4 years down the road, we don't get any additional funding from THC. We may have some citizens say, hey, I only voted for this because the language in the election order said that this was leading to the full restoration of the courthouse. Where's the full restoration of the courthouse? You misrepresented.
That's what
So-
Mr. Collins told us.
So I would be concerned about that language, and Ms. Fleming, and I've never met the woman, but she's an architect, she's not a lawyer, and I would be more inclined to ask Mr. Pollin's opinion, of course, Mr. Musselman's here, as to whether or not this is language that might create problems, legal problems down the road. We cannot assure that there will be a full restoration.
He did tell us that, Mr. Henderson, on that one deal where somebody had sent him an email asking him to change the language or do whatever. And he says, you guys have got to be very careful with that type of thing. You're creating something that you're seeking relieving. And he told us that he needed to stay with statutory language.
Yeah.
That's,
Seeking or leading is a good recitation of his comments. But
Yes,
we
that's what he
cannot
said.
look like
I know
we're
what he said.
promising or trying to
I think
influence
that's
the
a fair
voters.
assumption, and I agree with that. Now, just explain to me, if you will, this is phase one, because this is the only grant that I know of that we have is a phase one grant. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's the only thing that the THC
Okay.
is committed to thus
And
far.
what are our matching funds with phase one grant?
My understanding is the county's obligated to match about 1/3, 300,000 and some change.
Okay, so if that's the only grant that we know we have, and then this is $4 million on here. I guess.
The $4 million is assuming that you're going to have to, that there will be, or I shouldn't say assuming.
Okay, now that's kind of
It's-
misleading too.
Yeah, it's $4 million is being requested of authority, is being requested of the voters in anticipation
A full restoration.
of additional grant monies from the state. But we're anticipating that, but we can't assure anybody that we're going to get that. And Mr. Graves was, again, to his credit, very adamant in saying, we cannot assure this. We think he can, but
Where did we get the $4 million from?
I think it was a number that Commissioner Jower had worked with contractors to get some preliminary estimates. And again, it's quite frankly, it's almost anybody's guess, because we don't know how long it would take to get subsequent grants from the THC. If we were building it today, my personal feeling, based on the experience I've had with school districts and recent contracts on school district projects and other public improvement projects, that $4 million is probably more money than you actually would need if we were building it today. But if we're having to wait 4 years, maybe 6 years to get commitments of future THC grants, how much inflation are we going to have between now and 4 or 6 years down the road? In my experience, I've seen architects put as much as 1% a month or 12% a year. And so we just don't know. It's an educated guess, sir.
Okay, so.
Carl, that's true, what he said. It's an educated guess. I've talked to several contractors. He looked at the plans, so we did have Stoddard, who does this stuff, figured. He came up with $7,897,000 and some change. All right. Also, in his figures, he left out $200,000, which is specified in there to be put in for a contingency fee. The specs say $500,000, he just put $300,000 in. I don't know why he did that, but that's $200,000. So his would have been over $8 million if he had put that in there. All right, so you go with that. Okay, the other contracts I've talked to, we looked at different notes on the plan. And this is to be determined when this happens. This is to be determined when this happens. The owner is responsible for this, the owner is responsible for that. There's no, they took the numbers in there that they had 5 years ago for furniture for the courtroom. $48,500. They took the same numbers that they had for allowances in there. We don't know what those will be 5 years later. So, from everything that we looked at, discussing with other contractors, $10 million is not an assured figure that we can do it for that. If we did it in 2012, we can do it for under $10 million. But if it takes 3 or 4 phases, 3 more phases, it most certainly will not be under $10 million. But $10 million is a nominal figure, and so we figure with $6 million grants, $4 million is an appropriate amount to put in for bonds to substantially complete this project.
And that, those numbers reflect complete restoration.
But what the deal is, Carl, they said that those were that 10 million, because Pete left me those numbers, and then you call those people. So we would all, so we have 2 different opinions here today. They said that they felt like $10 million was a very reasonable number. And when they said reasonable, they said it could easily go over, it could easily come under. And I mean, we've just built, we know that things can happen. So he said reasonable, let's be reasonable. He was picking reasonable numbers.
Right, but in one hand, this
We don't have
language
to-
here, leading towards full restoration, is misleading, but then my assumption, this $4 million, if you're a taxpayer / voter, and this is what it's gonna say on the ballot, is it gonna have this language up here as well on the ballot?
I trust Mr. Paulin and I trust Mr. Henderson, and Mr. Paulin's the bond election attorney, and he said it was just statutory language, it was not leading, it was not seeking. I mean, I trust him. This is what he does for a living. I see a reason not to trust him.
May I just summarize one concern that I think THC has? Please?
Just real quick, Ms. Butler, Ms. Carter, we're not supposed to be having public comments, but
Well, I know that Mr. Henderson's here, and
he's our financial advisor,
I
and he's
know.
here on his
I
behalf
wish-
as he helped write this order.
I know, I would just like to give THC's only concern, and it might simplify things a little bit if Mr. Henderson understands. And just a clarification of how this reads would be helpful also, because it is possible to read the sentence, only if Proposition 1 passes. So if the voters vote for restoration, and then it says, in addition to that, in addition to the voters approving the bond, the county receives a grant or grants from the THC sufficient to enable the county to complete the courthouse restoration. And that is their concern, that it almost looks like if the county does not receive a grant large enough to complete the courthouse restoration, that the plan is not necessarily to move forward. So I think, it might just be a matter of wording here, but this is one way to interpret it. Because it almost looks like if the county doesn't receive enough grant money to complete the courthouse restoration, well, then the court can just decide not to do it, even though the county approved the bond.
Well, Sue, she's reading my mind, because if we don't get enough grant money to complete it, I don't see that the county should spend enough money to complete the courthouse restorations according to what Texas Historical Commission wants done. That'd be a waste of lots of money. So she's reading my mind. I'd say she's correct.
Well, and just mathematically, $4 million would not be enough to complete it if you didn't get THC grant.
Right, we know that, $4 million.
That's right.
But can we just stop? I don't want to get into another argument. What this is
We're not arguing, Judge, this is
everybody's going to be
discussion.
going back and forth, and according to the Open, Meetings Act, we're not supposed to be taking public comments and doing that. We try to accommodate people as much as possible. We try to be as nice as possible to hear everybody be said and everything being done, but we're supposed to stay to the agenda. That's what we're supposed to do. And so let's just stay here and decide on what we're going to do. That's what we need to do, please.
Okay, I will comment that I initiated this bond petition on the agenda originally, and I think we need to have funding available if we're going to restore this courthouse. That's why this was initiated. So I think this wording is proper in what we've discussed with Mr. Pollard. And therefore, I'll make a motion that we accept this bond election as worded.
I second that motion.
I oppose, because
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, any opposed?
I oppose because it takes no effort, no talent, of any sort to be a wrecking ball.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to adjourn. I second that motion. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
You're off the record.
Thank you.